Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the various TryHackMe challenges. More specifically, we'll be taking a look at basic pen testing. Now, a lot of people have actually been recommending TryHackMe for quite a while. Just haven't gotten down to making videos regarding it. I have used it before. Fantastic service, offers a structured way of learning, and of course offers various challenges in the form of questions. Which is also very useful because, again, it teaches you how to go, step by step, or to introduce at a very basic level the pen testing life cycle or the methodology. Of course, I'm primarily referring to this challenge, basic pen testing, which we'll be using to start off. So what I've done is I've just deployed it, and this is a free room, so you can check it out for yourself if you're interested. I haven't gone through the challenge yet. All I've done is I've submitted the first two answers to the first two questions. So you can see in regards to the to this particular challenge, this is a machine that allows you to practice web application hacking and privilege escalation. Right, okay, so if we take a look at the first task here, you can see it tells us in these set of tasks you learn the following: brute forcing, hash cracking, service enumeration, Linux enumeration. The main goal here is to learn as much as possible. Make sure you're connected to our network using the OpenVPN configuration file. And yeah, all right, so the first question is in regards to deploying the machine and connecting to the network via OpenVPN, which I've done. And the second question is in regards to performing an Nmap scan to find the services exposed by the machine, which I've also done. The next question is to find the name of the hidden directory on the web server. Okay, interesting. So what I'll do is I'll just cat out my Nmap results here. And let me just scroll to the top here. You can take a look at my Nmap scan options right over here, which I have. So this is quite a comprehensive scan. And immediately we can see that we have SSH running on port 22, which is running OpenSSH 7.2 P2, which is always very common with many of these challenges. I think OpenSSH 7.2 P2 is vulnerable to username enumeration. So if I just use search exploit and let's try and see whether it is. Right, so it is vulnerable to username enumeration. That probably will be coming in handy shortly. So what I'll do now is, let me just go back to my Nmap results here. So we also have a web server running on port 80, and that's running Apache HTTPD 2.4.18, and it's running Ubuntu. So we know from the banners we've gone back from our services that are running, we know that we are running Ubuntu. We're not sure which version, of course. We also have SMB running, which is on port 139 and port 445, running a Samba SMBD. So we pretty much know it's a Linux box because we don't have any Microsoft stuff here. So it's Samba SMBD 4.3.11. And we also have a Apache JServe protocol version 1.3, which is serving it on port 8009, which looks like an API endpoint. Right. Okay. So for the operating system guess, you can see that pretty much didn't give us anything, but we have a few additional scripts that were executed, and these are Smb scripts. So for SMB discovery, it gives us OS Windows 6.1, which is, it's pretty weird, especially because the banner tells us it's running Ubuntu. The computer name is basic2. As for the SMB security mode, we can see the account used is a guest, authentication level is user, challenge response. So it looks like we might be able to perform some enumeration from SMB, but that's pretty much the results here. So again, if we take a look at the first question pertains to finding a hidden directory on the web server. So let's try and analyze the web server. The IP is 10.10.28.233. So I'll just open that up. So 10.10.28.233, open that up. And you can see it tells us it's undergoing maintenance. So please check back later. If we view the page source, we can see we have a comment telling us check our dev notes section if you need to know what to work on. So what we can do is we can use an Nmap script, and I've been getting a lot of comments on my Nmap videos regarding why exactly did I make videos on Nmap. Well, again, as I showed you, it does have practical uses, and an example of this is sudo nmap, especially when performing enumeration. So I can say sudo nmap, we say port 80, right, and we say script is going to be http enum, and the target is 10.10.28.233. So I'm going to hit enter. just put in my password because I'm currently using the Kali user. Right, so that's going to perform the scan. Let's see if we can find any hidden directories, which the first question is pretty much asking for. So it's asking what is the name of the hidden directory on the web server. Enter the name without the directory, the actual directory denotion symbol. Right, so there we are. We can see the script complete, and it tells us we have a directory called development, and it's potentially interesting with directory listing. So we can try and access that, and let's see whether that gives us anything. So development, and we can see that we have 2 files within development. So there is directory listing enabled. We can see it is running Ubuntu. So just want to confirm that. We can see we have dev.txt. So in dev.txt, it looks like we have some messages being sent. That's what it looks like. So we have a timestamp and of course the message. So I've been messing around with that struts stuff, and it's pretty cool. I think it might be neat to host that on this server too. Okay, I haven't made any real web apps yet, but I have tried that one example. You get to show off that example. You get to show off how it works. Okay, and it's the REST version of the example. And right now I'm using version 2.5.12 because other versions are giving me trouble. Okay, so Smb has been configured, and it looks like we have users. So that's K, the user K, and the user K also says Smb has been configured, which is where I'm going to be targeting next. And then it tells us I got Apache set up. I'll be putting in our content later, which makes sense because you can see it tells us it's undergoing maintenance. If we take a look at the comment left by K again for the user J, so it looks like K is saying, I've been auditing the contents of the etc shadow file, which contains passwords on Linux, encrypted passwords or hashed passwords, similar to your SAM database on Windows, to make sure we don't work, so we don't have any weak credentials. And I was able to crack your hash really easily. So it's looks like it's using a really old hashing algorithm. You know our password policy, so please follow it. Change the password as soon as possible from K. All right, so it looks like K is is a serious administrator, and he's got his stuff down. But of course he hasn't, because he's leaving development notes on the web server. Okay, so that's interesting. So what if we try and access port 8009, which I doubt will give us much, because if it's using JServe, so 8009, probably we might have something to do with it later. I'm not too sure. Yeah, looks like that doesn't load up. Interesting. So we definitely know that from here we have 2 users. We have J and K, and we also have SSH running. So there, and we might be able to perform some username enumeration, but that's too much. I don't think that is something that we might want to do, but let's just provide the answer to the third question, which is development. So development like so, and hit submit, and let's see if that is correct. That didn't give me anything back. Let's submit again. Let me just try and reload the page here. Looks like the page doesn't load back or give me a response when I enter that. Right, okay. So please log in. Oh, it looks like my session expired, so I'll just log in. All right, just logged in, and I'll just specify development like so, and hit submit. Hopefully this time it is work. There we are. The answer is correct. So use user brute forcing to find, I believe that's use brute forcing to find the username and the password. So we need to find the username and password. So if we have Smb running, we can pretty much use enum for Linux. Now, when we talk about Smb enumeration, enum for Linux is pretty much the standard, because it lists out the shares, any users we might have potentially. So we can use enum for Linux. If we were running Windows, we would use some of the Windows scripts to list out the various protocols to see if it's vulnerable to Eternal Blue, stuff like that. So what we can do now is, I'll just say enum for Linux, and then we specify the information here. So enum for Linux, and just go back into my first session. Just exit out of this, sorry. There we are. So if we take a look at the help options for enum for Linux, We just specify A, and that will do all simple enumeration. This option is right, so it's enabled by default. So we'll just say sudo enum for Linux, and we just say A 10.10.28.223. Hit enter. Let's see if we can enumerate anything else or any more information. I primarily want to see if there's any shares. But let's see what we get. I want to see if there are any users as well, because there's making reference to brute forcing. Right, so we then have to provide the username and the password, and then it says, what service do you use to access the server? And then we need to enumerate the machine to find any vectors for privilege escalation. And what is the name of the other user you found? Okay, so there are 2 users, we know that. So it looks like one will give us initial access, and we'll find another user on the system. If you have found another user, what can you do with this information? Interesting. Okay, we can provide an answer for that. And what is the final password you obtain? Okay, so that's interesting. Let's just go back into the results here, and looks like we get a few results that I was not expecting here. So right, let's just try and run that by default. So we'll say sudo enum for Linux 10.10.28.233. There we are. Okay, so we can see that we have let's just wait for it to complete loading. Don't want to jump or make any conclusions yet. So for user enumeration, looks like there's an issue with the script, the Perl script. Okay. All right. So it looks like we have a share name called anonymous, which pretty much means we can access it, I'm guessing. So let's see if we have any more information here. For the groups, nothing there. Users, I doubt we get anything. The script looks like it has an issue. I think I've also run into this issue before with the enum for Linux script. So I'll just wait for this to complete. In the meantime, log on username, enumerating using the SID, basic 2, nobody, unknown. Yeah, so that doesn't look like it's working. So if we take a look at the shares, which is information, which is important. So you can see for the shares, we have anonymous and IPC, of course. So to access this, what we can do is we can mount it, or we can actually just try and use Smb client, and we can just try and log in. So what I'll do is I'll try and log in using a well, we can actually mount it and then list the files within it, because we're not really running Windows, and I'm pretty much familiar with enumerating on Windows. Of course, I've done it before on Linux. So what I'll say is I'll say Smb client, and then of course you need to provide the IP address. But because we know the share name, we can provide the IP and the actual share name. So in this case, the IP will be 10.10.28.233, and then we provide the share name, which is anonymous. Hit enter, and this asking me for my password. Say if we say dir, yeah, we get some data within here. So we have staff.txt, right? So what if I say get staff.txt, hit enter. All right, so it looks like that worked. So we can try and see the contents of staff.txt. Right, so it's currently stored in my home directory under staff.txt. So if we cat the contents of staff.txt, we can see announcement to staff, please do not upload non-work related items to this share. I know it's all in fun, but this is how mistakes happen. Right, so this means you too, Jan. So it looks like we get a user Jan and K, which are the 2 users, and the abbreviations were listed on the web server, J and K, so Jan and K. So we know the 2 users that we can use, and I'm guessing our access vector will be through SSH. So what we can do now is we can try brute forcing, both the password, both accounts, and let's see if we can actually get initial access. So if we take a look at the questions, just so I stay on track, so we can use brute forcing to find the username and password So let's actually perform that first. So to do this, I'll just use Hydra. So Hydra, and we specify the user. So Hydra L, and we say we'll use Jan first, and the password list will be under user share word list, and we'll just use rockU.txt. And this is SSH 10.10.28.233, and I'm guessing that will use the default. Port, right? Okay, so all right, I have a previous. Let me just skip that. So hit I, and it's going to begin the brute force process, right? So I'll try it off with Jan first, and then of course we'll move on to K. But we know we can actually just hit complete on that one because we're still performing the brute forcing. And then of course we need to get the username and password. And then, of course, we can try and access it with SSH because these are obviously accounts on the system. And through the share, we were able to enumerate. So we were able to find this stuff.txt. Okay, so that's using Smb client. Right. Okay. Interesting. So, what if I try and access IPC? Right, which is we can just say IPC here. Let's see if we have anything there. Smb client IPC. That's interesting. Why didn't that work? IPC, right. Hit enter, right. Okay. It usually works the other way around. So if we list within, we can see we don't have anything within this directory. So nothing within the IPC share. Let's try and see if we can, let's see what else we're able to gather from enum for Linux regarding Smb. I don't think there's anything more, but it should have been able to enumerate the users, which is very weird. For the Smb server, we know it's running Ubuntu. We know we have 2 users. Right, okay, so I think I need to look into this script and why it doesn't work anymore, because it's been a while since that has been fixed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait for this to complete, of course, and in the meantime we can probably take a look at some of the results we got from Nmap and some of the questions. Right, so there's nothing much here that's useful. Of course, Smb is also available through UDP on port 137. And there is an Smb Brute Script which can perform some brute forcing. Although I don't think that I've used that on Linux before, which is weird because whenever you're dealing with Smb, it's primarily going to be on Windows. And of course, I'm not saying that's what you'll find. It's just that Windows, has Smb enabled by default, and there's a ton of information you can get from Smb. So I'm just gonna pause the video here and just wait for this to complete. If it does, if it takes too long, we'll try the other user and see how else we can get access, because again, following the structure that's listed out here, we need to find the username and the password. Right, okay. All right, so the brute force has just completed. That took I think about 2 to 3 minutes, if I'm not wrong. And we can see that the username or the username Jan has a password Armando, so we can try and log in using those credentials via SSH. So SSH will say Jan at 10.10.28.233, right? And we enter in the password Armando. Hit enter, and we get access to basic 2 under the user Jan, right? All right, so if I what am I doing? So if we display the operating system information, so cat etc issue, let's just see issue. We can see it's Ubuntu 16.04.4 LTS, and the kernel is quite recent, I would suggest. That's version 4, which I don't think is vulnerable to any kernel level exploits. Let me just list all the directory. So it looks like we have less host here, which we don't have permissions to access, of course. And right, okay, so we can provide the username, which we got was Jan and Armando, and we hit submit. Right, let's see if that works. Right, that works out. And Armando, does that work out as well? Okay, so what service do we use to access with SSH in all caps? We need to provide that in all caps. Okay, that worked as well. So enumerate the machine to find any vectors for privilege escalation. Right, okay. And then what is the name of the other user, which I think we know already. We were able to tell was K, which we can actually try and display. But before we do that, cat etc password. Let's see what users we have. Jan, Tomcat, K. It looks like those are the only users we have access to. And of course, we have the root user, but I don't think we're supposed to escalate to root. That's not listed within the challenge. We have that's pretty much all the users. So I think the other user is going to be K right over here, and home K. That's the user directory. So what I'll do is let's just provide that user here. So that's K. Looks like that is correct as well. So we only have one last question we need to actually provide an answer to, and that's what's the final password we will obtain. Okay, so if I list out, if I just take a step back, you can see within the home directory, let's see if we can access K. Indeed we can. And what's password.back? Pass.back, permission denied. We have bash history. Let's cut out bash history. I don't think we have permissions to do that. Can we access SSH? Looks like we can access SSH, and we have the private and public key. So if let's see if hopefully we can cat out the private key, which we can. So I think this is going to be our access vector. Of course, the access vector is SSH, but we can actually log in using the private key. So let's see if we can actually log in. So again, I'll just reduce my font size here so I can just copy that the entire key, the private key here. So I'll just copy that, and I'll just bring that back here. Right, okay, so what I'll do is I'll create a file here, and I will call it, we'll just call it ID RSA, right? And we'll put the contents of that key in here. And chmod, let's just give it the appropriate permissions here, sorry, 0400 and ID RSA, SSHI, ID RSA, and we're logging in with K at 10.10.28.233. Hit enter. It's in invalid format. Looks like the key, the private key, has a passphrase. Okay, that's interesting. So if we take a look at the public key, cat ID RSA.pub, we can see we get a bit of a comment at the end. I don't have to type in a long password anymore. Okay, all right. So it looks like the SSH key has a it is encrypted with a password. So what we can do is we can use just locate SSH to John, which will allow us to crack this. So it's does this work natively? Because last time I was performing a CTF on Vulnub, I had to actually go to the Python script directly. So I'll just go into user and we'll say John, and there we are. All right, so SSH to John, and we then provide the ID RSA, which is in our current directory. So that's under documents, and I put it under TryHackMe and basic pen testing, and it's ID RSA, and we'll output this into we'll just say key.txt. Well, that'll actually give us the hash. So hash.txt. Hit enter. Just use sudo. Right. So what am I doing? I need to output this into my documents as well. So documents, TryHackMe, basic pen testing. Hit enter. Let's see if that works out. Okay, I'll go back into my documents and TryHackMe, basic pen testing. There we are. And if I cat the contents of hash.txt, let's just see what we have here. Yeah, so it looks like a hash, and a very weak one. You can see we have one here, the one option I believe within Linux. Let's just perform some research on this. Google.com Linux shadow account. Let me just change that to English here. So Linux shadow file hash hash format. So yeah, this will pretty much explain what I want to explain here. So when we're cracking this, the one denotes that that this is the ID, as it were, as it says here, is the algorithm that was used. Typically on later or newer versions of Linux, it pretty much comes with option 6, which is SHA-512 or 512. So that means it's MD5, which means we can pretty much crack it with John the Ripper here. So I'll just get out of that, and we list the files. We have hash.txt, so we can say John, and we'll just say hash.txt, hit enter, and that should automatically detect it. So it tells us this is MD5, AES MD5, and we can actually use the word list is equal to user share word lists rocku.txt, and we hit enter, and let's see whether that is able to crack it, and immediately we get the key for IDRSA, which is beeswax. Okay, so that looks like the key here. Okay, so we can pretty much try and use the key to log in now. So SSHI IDRSA, sorry, that's IDRSA, and we log in as the user key 10.10.28.233, and the password is beeswax, I believe. And yeah, we get access to K. Okay, so that was fairly simple. We were able to perform the privilege escalation. That's the vector for privilege escalation. Yeah, okay, so we didn't have to provide an answer there. If you found another user, what can you do with this information? We can log in via SSH, complete, and what is the final password to obtain? So let's just list the contents here. We have the password.back file, so cat pass.back, and this looks like the password, so I'll just copy this and let's see whether this is the password here, and we put it in there and hit submit, and hopefully that is correct, and there we are. So we've completed the room. So yeah, that was fairly simple. That is basic pen testing. I think that's a good introduction into local Linux, information gathering, enumeration, and privilege escalation. Of course, the thing that I liked about it the most was the fact that it incorporated important aspects of SSH. And I've come across many students who are not aware of how SSH works in regards to asymmetric encryption aspect of it, where you have the private and the public key and how they can be used to authenticate with each other. And of course, the additional security feature implemented with SSH and and the key pairs is going to be encrypting the SSH key, whether it be private, when it is private, with a passphrase. In this case, you can see we were able to get the passphrase using SSH to John, which actually gave us the actual hash, and then we were able to crack it that way. And of course, in most cases, you're not going to come across accounts that have been secured with MD5, especially on Linux. Now, as I said, most of the latest versions usually come with SHA-512. So if I just go back in, if I open up a new session here and I say this is on my local Kali machine, so sudo cat etc shadow, open that up. Yeah, so you can see it uses the strongest form of encryption here, which is recommended. But of course, this is a very good introduction to pen testing. Let me know what you guys think. I really like these challenges. I think I'll be doing more of the TryHackMe challenges and trying to explain a few more things, giving you a bit of information regarding what I'm doing, some tips and tricks regarding how you can you can streamline your enumeration process. And I'm really interested in improving the amount of information I divulge when it comes down to enum, especially when talking about ports like Smb, which is some people find quite complicated. But again, hopefully this video shed some light on that. It was a very, very good challenge. And yeah, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comment section. Would love to hear them, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace. I just want to take a few minutes to thank all our Patreons that support us on patreon.com patreon.com/hackersploit. So thank you very much. Your support is truly appreciated, and you really keep us going. So thank you to the Patreons: Murph the Surf, Daniel Bork, Jonathan Kyle, Adam Mack, Jamal Guillory, Dafim Bari, Jeremy Nikolai, Mary Hara, Max Chow, Dustin Umpress, and Michael Hubbard.